He presumably will beg the Saudis to produce more oil. But don't worry, the White House says they're not desperate for help.
Are you all worried about the optics of a visit to Saudi and looking like we're going sort of hat in hand, needing their help? Their human rights abuses are documented. The killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, there are real worries. And there are Democrats speaking out saying they don't think the president should be making this trip.
What's behind this is a very simple proposition, which is when it is in U.S. interest for the president to engage with a foreign leader, he will do so. If he believes he can advance U.S. national security interest and U.S. economic interest for American families.
Yeah, sounds like politicians speak for desperate. But if the White House isn't looking for a quick fix to the energy crisis, why is the president trying to make nice with the country he recently called a pariah? Joining me now, director of the Libertarian Institute and author of the brand new book, Hotter Than the Sun, Time to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, Scott Horton is back. So, you know, we have so many problems with Saudi Arabia, from Jamal Khashoggi to 9/11. How can the president possibly thread this needle?
Well, I mean, his best attempt was just to lie and say, well, I'm going to a big meeting and the Saudis are going to also be there too. And then, of course, now they have to admit that, of course, he is going hand in hand to meet with Crown Prince Bonesaw there to beg him to increase oil production in order to try to drive down the cost of fuel, which, you know, raises the question of what he's going to offer them instead, or, you know, in trade. Is he going to kill the Iran deal once and for all? Is he going to ignore Saudi persecution of Shiites and women even more than before? Going to promise them another 7 years of genocide in Yemen. You know, there's talk of the creation of a new kind of mini NATO in the Middle East with the GCC, an alliance of the Arab states against Iran. And yet, and I wouldn't doubt that he's on offer there, we got to recruit all these autocracies to join our side in the fight of the democracies versus the autocracies. Everybody knows that. But then the whole real joke here, Kennedy, is it's not going to work because, as you were just discussing with the panel there, the price inflation is because of the monetary inflation. Remember, 2 years ago, all the governments, the 50 state governments, locked this country down, forced a Great Depression, essentially, and then they created a few $1 trillion in order to try to make up for that. And that's what's leading to the massive price inflation that we have now. And it's not going to stop until they raise interest rates so high that they deliberately cause that inflation, that recession that they're denying is taking place now in order to essentially crash the economy to prevent the price inflation, and then they'll start all over again.
Yes, and that's the cycle that we are in because of the systems that we have created. And, you know, it's a horrible choice. Like, do we have inflation or do we have a recession? And I don't trust anyone in this economy. I don't trust Jerome Powell. I don't trust the president to successfully navigate us through that. But, you know, also you have one wing of the party saying, yay, this is the best thing ever. What a convenient moment for us to get off fossil fuels and to force people to buy electric vehicles. So if that's the case, we're ready to do that, then, you know, why is gas all of a sudden so important that the president goes to Saudi Arabia of all places? You know, you've talked about an America First foreign policy agenda. Why isn't there an America First energy agenda?
Yeah, well, America already is self-sufficient. As Donald Trump complained, all that war in the Middle East to secure those oil resources supposedly is essentially securing oil resources for China, our so-called political adversary. And also, of course, so we can lord those oil resources over the heads of our allies, like Korea and Japan and Australia and the other countries that are dependent on Middle Eastern oil, where we're not. And, of course, it's a global price. But, you know, as Americans are screaming about the price of fuel now, we're still exporting. We're waging a war in Ukraine, spending billions of dollars over there, and the Ukrainians are still importing Russian gas. And the whole thing is madness. But you know, I'm really glad that this is actually scandalous that a president is meeting with Saudi royalty. It should be. It should always have been. It's a terrible country there. And this gives us a real opportunity, Kennedy, to force a vote and a win in the House of Representatives for this new House resolution. It's called HJ 87. They're again invoking the War Powers Resolution for Biden's support for the Saudi war in Yemen. And this is so important because, one, it's as bad of a war as Iraq War II. Hundreds of thousands of people killed.
And we don't talk about it enough in this country.
That's right. Yeah, and there's a total media blackout on it most of the time. But right now there's a real ceasefire. We're in month 3 of a real ceasefire. And the Saudis have abandoned the major goal of their war to reinstall the last dictator. And so if we push this House resolution, this really could be the pressure we need for the Congress to force the president to force the Saudis to finally negotiate a real end to this war.
What is the toll-free number people can call to encourage their Congress people to vote for that?
Thank you. It's 833-STOP-WAR. And today's a big holiday. It's the evening already. But tomorrow begins a huge push, an entire week of action by all the Yemen and anti-war activists on this issue. So everyone, please call 833-STOP-WAR. Tell them you want them to support HJ Res 87, the War Powers resolution to end the atrocity in Yemen.
And if you call tomorrow, you'll get 2 free. Scott Horton, thank you so much. Always good to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kennedy.